I'm sorry, in this country, if you can't pay the rent, you got to go, okay? We're not running a charity here. You got to pay the rent. Those are the rules. But none of these people understand that because they are all socialists. They think everything should be free. I got news for you. Somebody's paying, and it's not you, woman, with the floppy hat and the N95 mask. Indoors, by the way. Indoors. No smoke in there, ma'am. Socialism, which is the gateway drug to communism. The smoke in New York City today is just another day in Beijing, China, a city run by actual communists, but none of those people see the irony in any of this. There are people watching right now who were alive in the 1950s and probably remember the Red Scare. The Second World War had just ended, and the U.S. government did not want communism coming here to America. They didn't want socialism coming here. There was a clear difference between life in free West Berlin and life in communist East Berlin. Just like there are differences today between America and Cuba. We have electricity, for example. But back then, the fear of communist infiltration was so intense that if you were even suspected of being a communist, right or wrong, you were blacklisted. You lost your job. Hundreds of people were put in prison. Hearings were held on Capitol Hill where suspected spies and communists were put under oath.
The extent to which communism has been directing our foreign policy, our suicidal foreign policy, if you please. And if the American people want more of that, then they can vote for the present administration. I may say this, that my appeal is largely made to Democrats. I feel that the millions of Americans who have long voted the Democrat ticket are just as loyal, they love America just as much, they hate communism just as much as the average Republican.
Isn't that interesting? He's got to bring up Democrats even then. That was Senator Joseph McCarthy, a Republican, 1952. This is less than 10 years after World War II, and at that time, most Americans were completely against communism. A poll at that time, 90% of the country was against communism, including most Democrats, who have, for the most part, been anti-communist and anti-socialist until just recently, until Donald Trump got elected.
South Carolinians are pretty leery about that title, socialist. And so I think that that would be a real burden for us.
If we turn towards socialism, we run the risk of helping to re-elect the worst president in American history.
I do reject socialism as an economic system. If people have that view, that's their view. That is not the view of the Democratic Party.
That is not the view of the Democratic Party, says fancy pantsy Nancy Pelosi. That was in 2020. That's not that long ago. What happened? Socialism and communism were not the view of the Democrat Party in 2020. Fast forward all the way to 2026, and the party is now electing communists to federal office. This happened in less than 70 years. We went from holding hearings on Capitol Hill to prevent the rise of communism to electing communists to serve on Capitol Hill. Think about that. Please take a moment and think about that. And think about this. Today, according to a Gallup poll, 66% of Democrats say they favor socialism over capitalism. And now Democrats in Washington are suddenly saying the same thing.
Many who are running under the Democratic Socialist brand or the Progressive brand are making their case with just extreme passion.
Regulating industries so that they don't dump poison into the water and the air. They want to call that socialist. Democrats have got to stop being shy about that term.
Trump derangement syndrome has turned Democrats into communists. That's how bad this has gotten. The Wall Street Journal writing today that Democrats fall for socialism again. Quote, not long ago, Democrats understood the risk of allowing socialists to prevail. So what's changed? Not the president, not the country, but the Democrats themselves, end quote. The Democrats themselves have become a party of communists to the point where the leading candidate right now for the 2028 Democrat nomination is now questioning capitalism out loud.
Something's fundamentally broken here. And that wealth is creating power locking in rules and regulations, locking everybody else out. I would argue socialism not going to work, but capitalism as we know it, doesn't work either.
Actually, capitalism works very well, and it's worked for the last 250 years. You heard it there. Socialism's not going to work, but capitalism doesn't work either. And that guy right there, this man is the leading candidate for president on the left.